Assalamualaikum friends, my name is Afsah Fatima. Welcome back to my classroom. So my today's lesson is cogia. This story comes from the Thousands and One Nights, a collection of traditional tales from Arabic, Persian, Turkish, and Jewish literature, published in 1704. Cogia is a merchant. He buys and sells things. He lives in Baghdad. 7 years ago, he made a religious journey to Mecca. Before leaving Baghdad, he gave his friend, another merchant, a jar to keep safe for him. He told his friend it contained olives. Cogia is a merchant. He buys and sells things. He lives in Baghdad. 7 years ago, he made a religious journey to Mecca. Before leaving Baghdad, he gave his friend, another merchant, a jar to keep safe for him. He told his friend it contained olives. Cogia planned to be away for a few months, but he enjoyed seeing new places so much that he continued to travel through many different countries. Now, it's 7 years later, and Cogia is returning home. Cogia's friend had completely forgotten about the jar. But one day, his wife said that she wanted to eat some olives. "That reminds me," said the husband. 7 years ago, Cogia left a jar of olives here. By now, he must be dead, so there's no reason we shouldn't eat the olives. "I'll see how they taste." "No," answered his wife. 7 years have passed without news of Cogia, but he may still be alive. He may come back one day. He trusted us. "Don't touch the olives." But the merchant didn't listen to his wife. He went into his shop and opened the jar. The olives at the top were bad, so to see if the rest of the olives were better, he shook the jar and some fell onto a dish. And with the olives, some gold coins fell out too. The merchant was amazed and wanted to keep the gold for himself. He looked into the jar and saw that the bottom was filled with gold. He replaced the olives and went back to his wife. "You were right," he said. "The olives were bad. I have put the lid on the jar. Cogia will never know it has been touched." Early the next morning, the merchant went out, bought some fresh, new olives, and threw away the old ones. He filled the jar with the new olives and took the gold and hid it. He put the lid on the jar again and put the jar in the same place as before. 1 month later, Cogia returned. The next day, he went to see his friend, the merchant. His friend was extremely surprised to see him. Cogia asked his friend for the jar that he had kept for so long. "Certainly," said his friend. "Here's the key to my shop. You'll find the jar in the same place you put in." Cogia jar, carried it home and opened it. He put his hand inside but could feel no money. Where was it? He poured out all the olives. The gold was gone. Cogia was shocked. "Did my old friend really do this?" he cried. He ran back to the merchant. "My friend," he said, "I cannot find in this jar 1,000 pieces of gold that I put in the bottom under the olives. Maybe you borrowed them for your business. If that is so, there's no problem. I only ask you to give me a receipt. You can pay me back later." The merchant had his answer ready. "Cogia," he said, "when you brought me the jar, did I touch it? I gave you the key to my shop, and you yourself put it where you wanted. You found it in the same place, looking exactly the same. If you put gold in it, the gold must still be there. I know nothing about this. You told me the jar contained olives. I haven't touched it." Cogia tried to persuade his friend to admit the truth, I do not want to go to court about this, he said. Think of what will people say. Ali Cogia answered his friend, You must agree that he only gave me a jar of olives. You now say it had 1,000 pieces of gold inside, and I must give them back. Did he ever mention gold before? I did not even see the olives. You never showed me the inside of the jar. Now you could say there are all kinds of things in there. Gold, jewels. Please stop this. Very well, said Ali Cogia. Let us see if you will tell us a story to the judge. Good, said his friend. We shall soon see which of us is right. So the two men went to the court. Ali Cogia told his story. The judge asked if he could prove that there was gold in the jar. Ali Cogia could not. So the judge, he went home happy and rich. Ali Cogia, he went home happy and rich. Ali Cogia angrily wrote a letter to the Caliph, Harun al-Rashid, asking him for help. He knew that Harun al-Rashid carefully read all the letters he received. After a few days, a guard appeared at Ali Cogia's house and told him the Caliph wanted to see him the next morning. The guard also asked for the other man's address so that he could be there too. That evening, the Caliph, with two important officers, went out and walked through the town in disguise. He often did this to see what was happening among these people. Through a door, he saw some children playing in the moonlight. He hid in a dark corner and watched. Let us play at judging, said the oldest child. I will be the judge. Bring me Ali Cogia and the man who stole his 1,000 pieces of gold. The children had heard adults discussing this. The Caliph, remembering Ali Cogia's letter, watched with interest. The child playing the judge took his seat. Two other children played Ali Cogia and his friend Merchant. The child playing Ali Cogia told the judge, then asked the other man what had happened. The child told exactly the same story as the real merchant. Now, said the child playing the judge, show me the jar with the olives. Ali Cogia pretended to put down a jar. The judge asked the merchant, Is this the same jar? And he replied that it was. The judge then opened the jar and pretended to look inside. What beautiful olives, he said. Let me taste one. Pretending to eat one, he said, These are really excellent. But how strange, these olives are 7 years old, but they taste so good. Let us see what our olive sellers say about this. Two children came in pretending to be olive sellers. The judge asked, How long can you keep olives before you eat them? Sir, replied the olive sellers, even if you take good care of the olives, they never last more than 3 years. Now, answered the little judge, look into the jar and tell me how old the olives are. The olive sellers pretended to look at the olives and taste them. They said the olives were fresh and good. You are wrong, said the child judge. Ali Cogia said he put them in there 7 years ago. Ali Cogia's friends opened his mouth. The olive sellers pretended to look at the olives and taste them. They said the olives were fresh and good. You are wrong, said the child judge. Ali Cogia says he put them there in 7 years ago. Sir, replied the olive sellers, these olives are from this year. If you ask the other olive sellers, they will all say the same. Ali Cogia's friend opened his mouth to say something, but the little judge gave him no time. Be silent, he said. You're a thief. Take him away. So the game ended. The children clapped their hands and led the criminal outside. Harun al-Rashid and his officers were amazed. Tomorrow, he said to his officers, he will ask the same question and see what happens. Remember this same question house? He added and remember this house. He added and bring the boy tomorrow too, and bring the real judge. He can learn from this boy. Tell Ali Cogia to bring his jar of olives and make sure that 2 expert olive sellers are also present. Early next morning, one of the officers went back to the house and fetched the boy. The boy was nervous when he met the Caliph, but the Caliph explained why he wanted him. "Come here, my son," he said kindly. "I think it was you who judged the case of Ali Cogia and the merchant last night. I heard you by chance and was very pleased with the way you judged it. Today you will see the real Ali Cogia. Sit here next to me." Ali Cogia and his friend were brought in. The Caliph said, "Now speak. This child will be your judge." The 2 men told their stories. In court, Ali Cogia couldn't prove that there was gold in the jar, explained the man. The boy then said, "We must see the jar with the olives." So Ali Cogia opened it. The Caliph took one of the olives, tasted it, and told expert olive sellers to do the same. They said the olives were good and fresh from the ear. The boy said to them, "Ali Cogia says that he put the olives into the jar 7 years ago." The olive seller said that this was impossible. The boy looked at the Caliph, saying, "Sir, this is not a game now. It's now time for you to judge and not me." By now, the Caliph knew the man was a thief, and he showed them where he hidden all. By now, the Caliph knew the man was a thief. He told the guards. By now, the Caliph knew the man was a thief. He told the guards to take him away. The man knew he must tell the truth now, and he showed them where he had hidden all Ali Cogia's gold. The Caliph sent the boy home with a purse containing 100 pieces of gold as a sign of his thanks. So friends, the moral of this story is that never be greedy, or number 2 is never betray anyone, even if it's your friend or an unknown person, because they have trust on you, and trust is very important in your life. Thank you friends for listening to me. This was all for today. We'll meet you in another class. Bye-bye.